Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today, me and Alex are going to be talking about the effects of COVID on the American education.
Hey, how's it going? I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So let's get into it. Ever since the start of 2020, schools across America have had to shut down and use computers to teach. You remember that?
Yeah, that was awful. I learned like nothing for that half of the year.
Teachers were using things like Google Meets, Zoom, Google Classroom, and to give us all of our assignments. None of the work was on paper, and we never even met any of our teachers in 2021.
Yeah, it was a really big adjustment. I think 2021 was the worst my grades have ever been.
And we were only supposed to be quarantined for 2 weeks.
Yeah, uh, 2 weeks turned into 2 years. No one really thought that COVID was going to be a big deal. Everyone was like comparing it to Ebola from 2016. They were thinking it was just going to go away.
Imagine how young kids with learning disabilities felt after losing 2 years of school.
I mean, imagine going into 8th grade with a 6th grade reading level after already being behind the curve.
Yeah, speaking from experience, if I didn't have a teacher in in a classroom to help me focus and do my work, I wouldn't be learning much of anything.
Yeah, because you got dyslexia, so you probably would have had it the worst out of everybody.
As a kid with dyslexia and knowing myself, online school wouldn't have helped me with my learning, especially when I was younger.
Yeah, I mean, not just kids with learning disabilities, but everybody in that age group in elementary school was struggling during this time. According to a study done by Curriculum Associates, kids in grades 1 through 6 were found to be 3 months behind in September 2020 and 5 months behind in May of 2021 for math, and 1 month to 4 months behind in reading in the same time frame.
Yeah, kids were forced to learn on on a computer at such an important time in their learning, missed out on what they needed to stay proficient in school.
I mean, there's probably 2nd graders who never learned multiplication because they missed that when COVID shut them down in the spring.
So you know about the reading crisis? Let's talk about that. So according to the Powell's report done by the University of Virginia, in 2021, almost 35% of kids below third grade were below the reading benchmark. That was a 14% increase from before COVID.
Jeez. I can imagine that standardized test scores were way lower across the board nationwide. That sounds like a 14% increase is a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Uh, According to the same study, kids in kindergarten through second grade who weren't as well off in schools were struggling significantly more than kids that were well off in schools, which led to a lower rate of kids going to college in these schools.
I mean, think about how messed up it is that poorer kids who have less access to technology were basically guaranteed to do worse than wealthier kids simply because they weren't provided computers, or at least the same computers that had access to online textbooks and the same tools that wealthier schools had. Think about how this would affect kids in the future, not knowing how to read and write, besides them not getting into colleges.
Yeah, I think this would set back kids in school a lot, and it would lead to kids being behind in school.
I mean, I agree. If the COVID restrictions didn't lighten up as fast as they did, there would probably be an entire generation of kids who'd have to have school adjusted for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think this would add a lot of stress onto the students, especially kids who are struggling with these learning disabilities in school.
Yeah, I mean, since COVID restrictions did get lifted um, relatively quickly, 2 years, I don't think much is going to happen.
But what if we shut down again?
Well, if we do shut down again, then it's just going to get worse. Because unless schools can find a way to educate kids outside of a classroom with teachers in a completely different building from them that would let them be on the same level, then yeah, it's just going to be terrible.
Yeah, I guess we're just gonna hope that that doesn't happen. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. Uh, Thank you to our guest Alex, and make sure to tune in to the Miller Time podcast.